For today's lesson, we are going to look at argumentative writing. So what is an argumentative essay, or what is argumentative writing? Another word that we would normally use instead of argumentative is also persuasive. So persuasive and argumentative, they're the same type of essay or the same kind of writing. So an argumentative essay or a persuasive essay is a type of writing in which you, the writer, argue a point of view and express your opinions about an issue or statement. In essence, you're trying to convince the reader to agree with you on your standpoint or to agree with you and your opinion. So what should your argumentative or persuasive essay do? It should, one, argue a case clearly and logically. It should, two, hold the reader's interest from the beginning to end, and we'll talk about how you can go about doing that. And three, it should provide a balanced argument. Before you begin writing your essay, it's very important that when you look at the prompt, it's very important for you to choose a position or for you to choose a stance. So either you're going to agree with what was said in the prompt, or you're going to disagree with that. And if you agree, it means that you share the same opinion or you share the same views that was presented in the prompt. Or if you disagree, then you do not share the same opinion or the same views. And of course, with both, you will outline what your reasoning is for your stance. An argumentative essay should have 5 paragraphs, 1 introductory paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And of course, as a part of the introduction, there's a thesis statement that is a sentence that will outline the points that you plan to discuss within the essay, because we're looking for 5 body paragraphs. 5 paragraphs, but 3 of them will be body paragraphs. The 3 points that you're going to list within the thesis statement should be the points that you plan to discuss in each of the body paragraphs. And of course, when you're listing your points and when you go to write your paragraphs, they're going to align. So if you're going to discuss that for your first paragraph, students should not be allowed to wear their own clothes because they can't afford it. If you put that as your first thesis statement point, as the reader of your paper, I shouldn't see that as your third body paragraph that you develop. So it's very important that when you're writing your thesis statement, you put it in the order in which you plan to develop your body paragraphs. Now here are 10 tips for writing an argumentative/persuasive essay. 1, have a strong opening inclusive of a thesis statement. Have a strong opening inclusive of a thesis statement. That's very important. When you're writing your introduction, there are certain things that you might want to include in it, and we'll look at some of those things. But it's very important for you to include in your introduction maybe some examples or scenarios. You might also want to include some quotes as well as some familiar statements to enhance or to improve the overall effectiveness of your introduction. And of course, there should be some mention in your introduction or your opening of the position that you plan to take. I agree with the statement, whatever the statement is that you're agreeing with. Tip 2, use transitions. And transitions are words or phrases that we use to link ideas and concepts together. And it makes it easier for us to move from one section of the essay to another without having any interruption of the flow of the essay. So when you're writing your argumentative essay, there are certain transitions that can be used. I've listed 2 here, but there are others. Another common argument used is, or however, I strongly feel that. These are just 2 examples of transitions that can be used for the argumentative essay. Tip 3, use rhetorical questions. And a rhetorical question is a question that you ask without expecting an answer. You will find that in an argumentative or persuasive essay, these kinds of questions are very useful in getting your point across. Let's look at the example here. Are you aware that thousands of human students have not engaged in learning for more than a year? Now, this question might be found in a paper, but the writer of the paper might not necessarily want the person reading the paper to answer this question. It's just to invoke the thought process throughout the reading of the essay. For repetition, so I left the question there because this particular question can be repeated throughout the essay for effect. A repetition is when you say the same thing or write the same thing more than once throughout. Tip 5, avoid inflammatory language. And inflammatory language is anything that might escalate or take away from the value of your argument. For example, insulting or name calling within the essay, or suggesting that persons that do not agree with your view are stupid, or they're unintelligent, or even more explicit words. Try to get your point across without insulting or without devaluing your audience. Tip 6, use persuasive language. And persuasive language is anything that you can use to convince your audience to agree with you or to accept your point of view. And here's an example. It goes without saying. It just makes it easier for the reader to accept what it is that you're saying or to consider it. And there are other figurative language that we will look at later. Tip 7, various sentences. I have an entire lesson video on sentences. It's called Super Sentences. You can go ahead and watch that to see the different types of sentences that you can use throughout your essay. But you want to vary your sentences, and not only the type of sentence in terms of purpose, you also want to vary the length of sentences that you're writing throughout your essay as well. Tip 8, use first-person pronouns. For example, I, me, my, our. You want to include yourself in the conversation. It assists with convincing the audience. You want to be a part of what it is that you're sharing. You want to be a part of what it is that you're arguing. So use first-person pronouns. Tip 9, when you're writing your essay, you don't want it to seem like everything that you would have written is just based on your opinion or just based on your belief. You want to include some kind of information that can be proven to enhance your argument. And I also have a lesson on facts and opinions. It's a mini lesson, but it'll give you an idea of what facts are and where you can go to find facts. You can go ahead and watch that if you need additional information on facts. Tip 10, include an opposing view. It's very important that if you agree with the topic, that you include a little something that disagrees with it, or you want to present the other side of the argument. You don't want your paper to seem one-sided. So it's very important that you at least acknowledge what another person might be thinking and how what they are thinking might affect the overall analysis. So it's very important that you include an opposing view. So in a nutshell, this is what an expository essay or a persuasive essay is, or what it should do. It should present an opinion to the reader. It should explain, clarify, and illustrate that opinion. Of course, it should persuade the reader. And of course, you need to include that within the essay should be supported, or it should convince the reader to move to action or to begin working to get something done. When you are presenting your argument, you want the reader to consider that it is something to be worth reading, something to be worth listening to. As a matter of fact, something to be worth considering as an option. So you have to present your case in a very unbiased way, and of course, in a non-insulting or demeaning manner. Your opinion should be supported by facts, examples, stories, scenarios, and last, you should include a counter-argument, and the counter-argument is just another word for an opposing view. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that you find the information presented in this live session useful.